On last week's episode, I was out in the wilderness, high up, and I took some time to really reflect on around manhood, and it brought me to my father. Whew. And I could say that I found peace today, with my relationship with my dad. But I spent some time just memories, thinking about not all the bad stuff, but really focusing on some of the good stuff. Some of the things my dad did teach me. And that for me is part of the passage of manhood, is forgiveness. Forgiving our parents, our fathers and our mothers, that they did the best they could with what they knew and with what they didn't know. Welcome back to Real Men, Real Talk Live. Welcome back to Real Men Real Talk Live. I am the host of the show. My name is Jay. I take a moment here to introduce my co-host this evening, Evis Love, coming in from Australia. Welcome back, Ev.
As always, brothers and sisters, thank you, and looking forward to diving in deep with our brothers tonight.
We actually have both Josh Richer and Jeff Fasano are off again this week. They're on set doing their business. We hope to see them back in a very near future. But in the meantime, I am so excited to introduce my spiritual mentor that I met about 5 or 6 weeks into my own healing journey, going all the way back, coming up on 8 years ago. Daz is coming in this evening from Mesa, Arizona. Welcome to Real Men Real Talk Live this evening, Daz.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Jay. It's definitely a pleasure. Long time coming, but I'm here tonight to share, and really looking forward to it.
Well, welcome to the talk show this evening, and of course we have Soaring T-Bear. Soaring Teddy Bear, last week was your first, we call it your indoctrination into Real Men, Real Talk. And we loved having you. We invited you back this evening. And so welcome back to Real Men. Bear, I am curious just to ask you, what would you say was your biggest takeaways from going through your hazing last week into our program?
Okay, first off, I was in the military, in the Navy. Hazing, that wasn't hazing. That wasn't even close. that was a walk in the park for me, brother. Thank you very much for inviting me to another show, and thank you guys. I just love the love. I love the love we're bringing. I love the design and the desire behind everybody. So I am grateful to be here. I'm grateful for all the people that are listening, watching, and experiencing. Beautiful.
And with that, I'd like to welcome our viewers joining us this evening, live or on replay. The good news is you showed up right on time, your time. And so if you hear something that you like, love, you're inspired, please feel free to share it out with your friends and family so that they can have the same experience that you're having this evening as you're tuning in. Tonight's episode is episode 169, and it is about lighting up the darkness in your life. And it's really about a deep dive into recognizing the intelligence of our unconscious mind. And ever since in the top shelf this evening, I want to invite you to kick us off, light us up, get us hot, and tell us, what does this episode mean for you? Lighting up the darkness in your life.
Yeah, as always, brother, great intro. And thank you, my brothers and sisters from here in the land down under. Looking forward to diving in tonight. Such an important topic. And, as they all are with the messages that we're trying to share into the collective, we'd really appreciate your brothers and sisters if you can share it out in your communities on the social ecosystem. Without you guys, we're just a few guys sitting in the back room having a bit of a yarn or chat, as we call it here in the land down under. So bringing the light into the dark, my brothers, look, I had to bring a lot of that light into my dark. We just watched a beautiful reel from the man, Jay the Roth man, sharing a lot of vulnerability, but sharing his story of how he really was able to bring some light into his dark after many years. And it's quite a significant time for many of us to start bringing that light into the dark, what we may know as some more awareness into our day of life, into our relationships, into our health, even into our career and wealth, whatever that may be we're pursuing on our visional purpose here on planet Earth. In that reel in particular for me, why it was so significant, I wanted my brother to play it tonight, and why it reflects on this show is really the fact that when we think of bringing this light into the dark, whether you've watched the good old-fashioned movies of Star Wars, whether you've watched any other good or bad, light or dark movie, it's always talking about the same thing, brothers and sisters. It's talking about the two or the three minds: your conscious, your subconscious, and your unconscious mind. So we go through much of our life unaware of certain actions, behaviors, or habits that are circulating or repeating within our life, not so giving us the best results or something that we may be desiring on our purpose, like I mentioned. What happens is that we aren't aware that some of these recycled patterns may not even be our own. They can be our own also, but depending on how we were conditioned, brought up in those first tender 7 years of our life, where most of that subconscious program started to begin of how you live out your life today. Yes, I'm saying it. 95% of your life today is in that sub or that unconscious realm. And I'm looking forward to diving in and explaining what is the difference between those three minds. We've heard it in the scriptures: the mind, they say the Father, the Son, the Holy Ghost. They say Mary, Jesus, God. Whatever the three is always talking about the three minds. So the real key is to be able to bring some of this darkness to the surface, to be able to identify some of these blockages in those shadows so that we can start living a much more fulfilling way of life. So yeah, man, there's a little bit of an intro, brothers. I'm going to dive in with my brothers tonight. So looking forward to it.
Beautiful, beautiful, Ev. Thank you for kicking us off. Daz, I'm going to pass it to you. What do you make of what Ev just said, and how is this relatable in your own life experience?
Yes. Wow. Ev said a lot there, and for me personally, I can recall many years ago having difficulties in my life with regards to relationships and how I was relating to others and people, particularly my parents. I wasn't aware that there was a problem for decades. I just thought that this is just me reacting and acting towards whatever I was feeling at the time. And it took a gentleman that I met by Lonnie Hudspeth, which became my mentor in 2006. Uh, it took him to help me to understand why I was uh, going through the things I was going through with relationships, particularly with women and my parents, and you know um, how I was not aware of why these dynamics were happening. I was not aware of how I was behaving. Again, I had adopted the normal collective consciousness that everybody's like, well, this is just the way I am. This is just me. Regardless of how it's affecting my relationships, I really didn't care. It wasn't until I got a little older that I started to care about uh, what was the consequences for having these types of behaviors, have these types of feelings and emotions, that he helped me to really kind of begin to navigate through uh, this phenomenon. And part of it was that I was unconscious. I was unconscious of what was actually happening to me personally. And so the first thing that had to happen was I had to recognize that there was a problem. And the problem was, as Ev said earlier, I had a lot of emotional woundedness as a child. Now, initially, when I started to discover that I had a lot of emotional woundedness growing up, the first reaction was to blame everybody else, and I went through a period of years of as I con- as I started to discover that I had some emotional wounds. I started to blame my parents, my upbringing, my aunts, teachers that did not do their job teaching properly and that kind of stuff. And so that was the beginning of my own personal journey in a very healthy manner. Of course, prior to that, you know, I tried this, I tried that, I tried going into the church, I tried, um, of course, alcohol, drugs, anything to try to quell and push down the emotional wounds that I was having, not really being aware of the cause, and becoming aware and conscious of what was actually happening helped me on my journey to healing these emotional wounds.
Yeah.
And so that was the first step, is to become conscious that you're having some kind of pushback, some actions and reactions that are uh, unfortunately very natural when you're wounded. But as you get older, these types of behaviors and actions and reactions are not healthy when you're trying to develop healthy relationships with individuals.
Beautiful, beautiful. Bear, what do you make of what are you hearing so far tonight?
I'm hearing a lot of truth, man, without a doubt. We all experience this thing called life, and it starts early, and we just have no idea what that's about. From the earliest memories I have, 3 years old, life was just so epic and filled with love, and then all of a sudden somebody picked up a 2x4 and started hitting, and it changed everything. It changed my understanding of what this life was. What are these parents? What are these two people that are supposed to be caring and loving? And
Yeah.
it kind of opens up that whole starting to question, who can I trust? Why can I trust? How can I trust? Or what can I believe in? And then we start getting validations through our lives. Validations. At 6 years old, I got into a fight with my best friend over a Tonka truck. And you're wondering why would we fight? Well, when you have a few years under your belt of getting belted, you kind of go with what you know. And what we know is only what we know. As children, like you were saying, Ev, up till about 7 years old, we have been developed. We have created and understood what life is supposed to be like. And we have that relationship with everyone, and it's up to us. It's hard for us to see it in those years, in those teen years, of course, through puberty and all that other mess that's created. And to be able to know what kind of a person we're supposed to be compared to what we've seen around us. Like you were saying, Daz, the parental guidance, was it there? It's not all bad. It's not all bad that happened when I grew up. If it wasn't for my two parents, I wouldn't be in that spiritual center that I am today. I also wouldn't be the kind of hiker I am and the nature lover and that cultural thing for my ancestors. That wouldn't have been a part of my life. But what happens is we still walk through life and we still get into these wounds and we still don't heal anything. And it's up to us to find that moment, that simple moment where we say enough is enough. And when we do that, that's when we open up the gate to, I don't know, looking at our priorities in life. What were our priorities as a 4-year-old, as a 5-year-old, compared to when we were 13? And how did that guide us? What were the things that were most important to me was don't get hit anymore. Don't do anything that's going to get you hit anymore. And then when you have siblings that are following the same pattern, telling you that you're adopted and that you don't belong and you never were a part of the family, how do we take that and nurture that into something healthy when we're going through puberty and completely getting blown out of the water? And then relationships, Daz, like you were saying, how do we communicate? How do we know how to communicate? What part of this mind can we tap into while we're going through all of that? And we don't have much of a guidance or a guideline for it. It takes something within ourselves to finally find a moment where we just say, this ain't working. That's enough. I've had enough of this, and I need to do the healing, and I need to step into that, which is supposed to be the beyond the mind, and say, where's it coming from? Where's my peace? Where's my protection? Nowhere else but within me. That's the only place it is. That's the only place it'll be.
So here's my question for all three of you. I think you've definitely acknowledged how from the unconscious mind how we were programmed from 2 to 7 years of age, and how we have shown up in our life with that programming in place up here. The question is that how do we find the balance between once we're the adult and now we're living our life as men and women, getting into relationships, even making the next generation of babies or bambinos. How do we learn how to tap into and manage and understand when we're making choices from the unconscious versus the conscious? How do we get there? How do we navigate through that? How do we change our relationship with that part of our mind so that we can tap in and live our best life, as opposed to living a life of just surviving or feeling like we're living in lack?
Well,
I mean,
for me
you got that.
personally, I realize that every individual rate and how they get to that place differs. For me, it took decades. And one of the things that, if when I'm asked, how did I get on this journey? For me personally, I started to realize I reached my threshold of emotional pain. So I had reached that threshold of emotional and psychological pain, which also parlayed into physical pain, physical ailments. So I had reached that place, and it took a while. I think around 40, 42 years of age, that's when I started to really start to internalize my pain. And of course, as you know, that old adage says, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. And this is when my mentor came into my life, when I was really ready to actually look at this emotional pain, look at this trauma. Obviously, I didn't know where it was coming from, but he helped me to begin to understand that I was unaware of the creation of this phenomenon. And that's when I began to delve in a little bit more into how to become more aware of how I'm reacting, how I'm, how my behavior. And as Ev said, I started to realize that there was some emotional wounds stemming from my childhood. One of the things that I had serious issues with my parents, although it has been resolved today. I have a really good relationship with my parents today, but back then it was difficult for me to relate. One of the biggest issues were not feeling nurtured or loved, even though they were actually loving and nurturing me. But some of the situations and experiences that I was having, it's almost like if you're not if you're not in the most healthiest part of growing up, then you tend to not develop as healthy and as well as you should. But then, as Bear said, I've also learned to recognize that without the challenges, without the emotional wounds, without those trauma and psychological issues, uh, I would not be able to actually begin to delve into the unconscious and begin to search that realm, the intelligence that wells up through the unconscious to my conscious mind, so that I can begin to heal those. So, in other words, without the trauma, healing doesn't take place. So, I do give some credence to what Bear said, that, hey, I know sometimes it's a little painful, but without it, we can't get to this place where we become whole and healed.
Beautiful, brother. Yeah, 100%, my brother. And why it's so important too, what you're talking about and what you've already shared beautifully and vulnerably, Daz. So thank you, man, for sharing your story. Is the whole notion and being aware of the emotions, being able to identify, being able to regulate and manage some of these emotions that may be sitting in the background, the dark. Those emotions literally go into the major database within the mind, and that is your subconscious mind. So I just want to share, just to get people a little bit more aware too of what these three minds actually represent. So if you think what we're doing right now, brothers and sisters, this is only 5% of the program, of the reality that we actually are projecting outside. So this is logical. This is analytical. This is the planning brain, the conscious mind, 5%. But just underneath that level of awareness lies the two I call the database and I call the RAM. Okay, so getting a bit techie here, but stay with me. The database, the super system, the super software is really that subconscious. To be able to go into that unconscious mind, which is really the RAM, the head of the head, the ram's head, all right, Aries, whatever you want to call it. That is your highest self. The subconscious is your higher self. The ego is the conscious self. So it was constantly looking outside of itself to start identifying and fitting into the world. That's why we took on mum and dad's software, their programs and their downloads and all of their stuff. That's why we took on the generational trauma. That's why we took on those belief systems. So all of those emotions, those old belief, I call B-lie or BS systems, as Jay the Rothman calls them, brothers and sisters, once you bring those to your awareness consciously, you realize that most of them, 99% of them, were lies. They weren't even ours. They weren't yours. Man, I had to do some deep work in the dark. That's why I have on the back of that chain right now, brothers and sisters, I shined the brightest in my darkness because I went into the subconscious and the unconscious mind.
Yeah.
It's the only way that you'll find your way back home. And once we're able to get into those belief systems that we took on through those earlier years, then we simply replace them with auto-suggestion. Some people call it affirmation, some call it mantra, but I do it daily now, brothers and sisters. It's a daily practice. I didn't just do it back then when I needed to get through my trauma and my abuse. I didn't leave it back there. I do it daily because it's something that we must continue as a daily practice, because the subconscious mind also is programmed through repetition. That's why when we do something so many times through repetition, what does it create? A habit. So we have to replace these old programs, these old systems, replace them with new belief patterns, and this will start creating healthier habits within our daily lives so we can live the best possible life that you, your unconscious, high S self, and your higher self, the subconscious mind, know that you are here to live. And that's where it gets deep, my brothers and sisters. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense to me. I'm gonna jump in here for a moment and just share that. When I when I started looking at my own life, when I also hit my threshold for pain, that was at about a 9.9. I had a pretty high threshold, but when I hit that marker, and I knew that it was do or die, one of the areas that I started to really dive into was my mind, was the programming that I had received in the culture I grew up, in the home that I grew up, in the faith that I grew up, in the schools that I grew up, and really started to look at not with anger, but more with humility, more with more consciousness, and more, let's say, mature perspective, which was really looking at and asking this one question: how well did that programming that was set into my mind, how well does it work for my ancestors? When I started to look at how their lives had evolved, I can only go back to my grandparents. I can't go back much further because I didn't meet my great grands. But I certainly could just assess my grandparents on both sides and my mom and dad, and really look at, and also what I learned at school, what I learned on the playground, and all the different aspects of my being from the time I was born through age 7 or 8. And I was able to realize that I asked this question: was it true or is it true? And everything that I had been living in, which was basically autopilot, as a husband, as a father, as a businessman, as a son, was all coming from, it wasn't coming from my truth. It was coming from somewhere else outside of myself. And that was really the pivot for me. That was a pivotal moment in my life journey when I realized that I was finally willing to say, I don't know. And then start to dig and seek my own answers of truth for myself, about myself, not about others, but to truly go into my own conscious mind and my heart, the connection between the mind and the heart, and really ask the questions: what's good for me? What do I need? What am I at peace with in order to live my best life today? And to give back, not with anger, not with blame, not with hate, give back by cutting the cords to my ancestors, all that was not mine, all that didn't serve them and wasn't serving me in my mid 50s, and to say, no, thank you. Please take it back. And it's a beautiful way to uncuff yourself from the handcuffs, from living in that inner prison of the unconscious programming that we live in as adults in living in this modern society. What do you make of that, Bear?
Absolutely wonderful, guys. Daz, that stepping into recognizing the moment, just like everybody's been saying, that moment. What is that moment for me when I flip the switch and start making the healthy choices? Well, most of the time, most people don't have the ability to, because they haven't been trained. They don't know what to read, what to look at. And look at what we have in society today, all this information overload. How much of it's really going to be beneficial to anybody? But we find that one time in our lives that we're at our darkest, or it's the heaviest, or it's the hardest, what we see is the most difficult. What it takes is us to do like you were saying, Jay, and cut that cord. Cut what cord? The cord to our emotional attachments to the past, how we felt about the things in the past. We're this age, we're 30, we're 40, we're 50. Why are we still walking in that same path? Why are we still holding on to those wounds of back then, when we need to be at peace with everything that's ever happened, stepping forward into our future with a healthy understanding? But sometimes we actually have to find that guide, that person, that mentor, that teacher. Like Daz was saying, he found the teacher came when he needed it. And we all have that moment when we're in that dark and when we can't see anything. All we do is sometimes, like Evis was saying, we just break into a mantra, a prayer, something that's powerful to us within us, and say, I just need help. I surrender everything that I know, everything that I thought, everything that this thing used to teach me. I surrender it because I don't know and I have no idea where I'm going or what I'm going to do next. And sometimes it takes that darkest of dark moments for us to like close our eyes and just ask the question or make the statement, I don't know. I have no idea. Can you guide me? Can you bring me help? And then as we open our eyes, that little spark of light somewhere is just starting to break through. Somebody opens the door like they did for you, Daz, like they did for Evis and Jay and me. And that one person, that one thing, that one event, that one moment in time becomes that shift and starts the complete transformation of saying, what's going on here? What do I need? What do I don't need? And where does it go? Where do I go from here? And then we start learning those nice lessons, just like you were saying, Daz, about your teacher and the power that came into your life after that. It's like, yes, feed me more. I'm hungry, man. I'm hungry for change. So yeah, absolutely. This is powerful moments. The light in the dark.
I'm curious, Daz or Ev, you could jump on this one. What role does the ego play in a relationship with all three parts of ourself, the unconscious, the subconscious, or the conscious mind?
That's a great question. I actually wanted to piggyback on what Ev was said or mentioned earlier about, you know, getting some information and doing some practices at first, and then just kind of like letting go. Well, that actually happened to me. When I first started to discover what the unconscious mind is revealing to me through in terms of learning what my emotional wounds and challenges were. I think it was like the first 3 years into my sessions. I thought I'd receive everything I needed. It was like, okay, I got this, I got that, I can put this together, blah blah blah. And I kind of just went about my business, and then it didn't take long, but my life started to fall apart again. And I remember having to call my mentor every so often, and he would have to talk me through the process of understanding that the teacher is actually happening as I'm going through these events. If I'm paying attention and being more mindful of my reactions and actions, then I can actually begin to decipher or decode what my unconscious mind is seeking to get me to understand through mirroring, through projections, and the triggers in terms of my relationships. So, as Ev said, I had to learn that this is not a one shot type of deal, that this is a complete change of how you see your life. And so for me, I started to begin to understand a little bit better that my relationship between my ego and the parts of my other the parts of my psyche and my mind need to be hand in hand. I can't just say, "Hey, I got this down pat," and just leave it at that, because my ego, because it has not been trained, tends to go rogue and make very unhealthy decisions, which we all know that when you make unhealthy decisions, you're going to have some consequences that you might not like. And so I had to keep focus in my mind that when I'm having these quote unquote episodes of frustration, fear, anger, and so forth and so on, that these are potential lessons. These are things that my unconscious mind is trying to help me to understand and to see about myself, not necessarily about the event. The event is just simply an arena in which these things are actually happening. But I had to understand that the intelligence that was coming through from my unconscious mind, trying to open up my understanding, that I need to begin to decode and recognize why these things are why am I being triggered? Why am I projecting? Why? And again, it goes back to your childhood and your emotional wounds. So now, as I continue on this journey, even to this day, I have to keep my ego in check by allowing the events of my unconscious mind bringing to my conscious mind and being mindful that, hey, there's a potential lesson here. So whenever I take a time to say that there's a potential lesson here because of my interactions that of behaviors that I'm mindful of and I pay attention to, that allows me to keep my ego in check. Your ego is there. It's part of your natural part of your psyche, but it needs to come under the control of your higher self so that when you're making choices and decisions, uh, they're not uh, they're not detrimental to your life.
Beautiful. Ev, what do you make of all that?
Yeah, magic, brother. Thanks for sharing all that. That was locked and loaded with plenty of nuggets in there, brothers and sisters.
Yeah.
You know, really understanding and overstanding initially what these three minds are about is the key. You know, if we think, like our brother was saying, you know, he was becoming aware of those actions and reactions to the external world. That's actually the conscious mind becoming intentionally aware of what the unconscious mind is trying to bring to the surface. But many people, they're not going to have that time in the day to be in that mindfulness practices, just to even be still, just to even be in the pause, which we've talked about plenty of episodes. You see, the ego mind, most of the time, brothers and sisters, is either living in the past or in the future. Past or future. The subconscious mind only knows one place, brothers and sisters, and that is now. It
Yeah.
only knows the present moment.
Yeah.
So we can
Exactly.
intentionally, in the now, create a different reality, even if the past wasn't the suitable past that we wanted, but we intentionally, with the conscious mind, bring it into the present moment through, like we mentioned, certain practices such as auto-suggestion, mantras, affirmations, meditation, you know, visualization. Are you aware of your dreams, brothers and sisters? You know, for a long time, when I was running my body into the ground, brothers and sisters, and I was first building it out, it was a subconscious program that was running. I was building it out in anger. I was building it out in confusion. I was building it out in lower vibratory emotions because I wasn't big enough as that younger child to get in between of the abuse and the trauma that I had to go through. But until I sat myself still and done my meditation practices, I was able to get into that unconscious and that subconscious mind to bring it to the surface. See, it's only then we can start bringing those belief systems, those emotions, all that dumpage from the past to the surface, that we can now start reprogramming the software. But how does that become hardware? It's through the action. It's through the behaviors. It's through the habits. So that repetition integrates into the body. And by the time you are 20 plus years old, my brothers and sisters, your subconscious mind is the body. So this is why it's so important. You've got to look after it. You've got to give it time to rest. You've got to be able to be in the stillness. Because not only are you dipping into that subconscious mind, but you actually are in rest and repair. You're not running from the tiger, which the conscious mind loves to do. So yeah, man, there's a lot of deep stuff about this.
Beautiful.
A lot of
Beautiful.
deep stuff.
Thank you for sharing that. I want to shift gears one more time. I'm going to take us down a rabbit hole. This is an area where we, especially living in Sedona, Bear, you know where I'm going with this, maybe. I've been invited to many different holistic approaches to, let's say, killing the ego using plant medicine. Yeah, I'm going to go there. I'm going to ask the question of each of you.
You going there, brother? Are you going there?
I'm going there because I'm sure there's listeners that are curious to to understand, is it the gateway? Is just doing let's say an ayahuasca ceremony or another kind of plant medicine like um, mushrooms of any kind, is that macro dosing? Is that all you need? And could you then sail into the sunset, living happily ever after? Is it the gateway, or is it a shortcut? Does it work? Does it not work? I'm curious if any of you had your own personal experiences, either utilizing it for your own healing journey or witnessing others that have used it that you've just been an observer of. Bear, you want to jump in and light us up?
Absolutely. Absolutely. We get this quite often, actually, in some of the clients that are coming in for healing.
Yep, exactly.
They've been saying, oh, I just went and did a 30-day in Peru or wherever they went, and they had a shaman that was guiding them into this journey. And they were guaranteeing you're going to heal from your wounds. You're going to fix your whole life. Everything's going to be perfect and divine. And it's like, you got to understand there is a purpose and there's a danger behind it all. The purpose is that, were the ancestors using this? Were they using peyote? Were they using marijuana? Were they using all these other things? They may have, but how did they use them, and why did they use them, and when did they use them? What was the purpose behind it all? I can tell you that the ancestors, when it was a peyote trip, it wasn't a trip. It was a peyote purpose. There was a ceremony involved. There was some sort of deeper meaning behind it. And that this desire that they had wasn't a desire to get high or to get clarity. It was a desire to learn the ways, the cultural ways. And peyote became really well known because a movie or two started showing what it was about. And people going, oh, I want that. But what is it getting us? I can't tell you how many people come up and say, yeah, well, I did the ayahuasca and all of a sudden I lost track of where I was and who I was. I was like, okay, what did you gain? What did you heal from? What was it that it brought you peace in? Well, it just let me know that I can do it more and get that same place. It's like, no. Let's go deeper than that. What is it that you're gaining in your soul, in your understanding of who you are? Because if you don't even know who you are, then what are you trying to fix? What are you trying to heal from a different substance, other than figuring things out here, and then bringing this into all of it? And the amount of time that we spend doing just the core wound healing, and for them to understand that, guess what? It's all in here. We do have it in here. How do we get it? How do we use it? How do we bring ourselves to it? Is the practices. It's the awareness, but how do we have awareness? Practice awareness. How long is it going to take? Well, you want to go and have a quick fix, then all it's going to do is put another mask on your life. It's going to bring up the raccoon with the little mask saying, hey, I'm not who you think I am. I'm not wounded. I'm all done because I've gone on a trip that took me 30 days of whatever into a world of, I wish I could go back because today I'm in the world. Today I'm here in New York City. Today I'm here in Dallas. And here's life in front of me. What's that ayahuasca doing for me? Did it do any healing? The proper guidance, the proper ceremony with the right intentions is the only way any of that's going to have that kind of profound shift, that life-changing shift. It's not just going to be take a drug and get high, get stoned, and feel the little drift out of your human self, because you got to come back. The only way you're going to fix anything is come back and do the work. What did you gain from that trip? What happened? Did you see God? Did you learn how to cut the wounds? Did you learn how to do forgiveness work and allow things to be settled and bring peace into you? Or did you just go for a quick fix and spend a couple of bucks on a trip?
Beautiful. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
This is your perspective, and I appreciate that. Daz, what's your take on it? What's your take
yeah,
on
I-
plant medicine as an asset? Is an asset or is it deficit?
I definitely agree with Bear. And if anybody knows me, I've had my share of cannabis and marijuana in my life, decades. Uh, can it be an asset? I think only, and I hope our audience understands. If you don't feel or acknowledge that there's a healing that needs to take place. That's the first thing. If there's no emotional or mental or psychological illness, then what are we talking about? The first thing we have to acknowledge is that there is some pain, emotional pain, psychological pain, mental pain, which transfers into the body. That's the first thing that you have to acknowledge, that there's something amiss going on with my life. I think what these um, these substances do, or has the potential to do, is what we've been talking about: bringing the individual to a conscious state of the things that they are not aware of, the unconscious state. And so for me, what has happened in particularly my marijuana use, it allowed me to be mindful, to think about, what was going on with me, psychologically, mentally, emotionally. That was the start. So, but once you begin to, as Ev said, once you begin to learn how to do this naturally, instinctively, to integrate the things that you are not aware of, that becomes to surface to your conscious mind, then you don't really need these substances. As Bear said, you're just looking for a good high and a trip, which is always short term and temporary. But if you really want to heal completely from your emotional and psychological wounds, which you recognize is definitely ruining your life, it's ruining how you live, it's ruining your relationships, it's ruining who you as a person, then you got to learn how to integrate the unknown into your consciousness, so that you can live a healthy life in peace, and have healthy relationships with others. And so um, that's what I had to learn to do, is to learn how to do that. And as well, once you learn how to do that, your ego stays in check. So if you really want your ego to stay in check, you have to be able to learn how to integrate, as Ev said, the intelligence and the lessons that your unconscious mind, uh, which happens in real time. If you learn how to integrate that in real time, it really keeps your ego in check, and your ego doesn't go rogue. So
Beautiful.
yeah, I mean, there's some assets to it, but it's not something that I would recommend to do in terms of permanent or healthy uh, existence and lifestyle.
Can I just bring in something again?
Yeah.
I'd like to just kind of put it in simple terms. If you were a wounded jerk before you started doing something, and you came out of something and you're still a jerk, where's the change? Why did we even bother? It's something's got to change. That's why we've done the work. That's why we stepped in. That's why we're doing what we're doing today, is because we realized in our dark days, we were probably big jerks.
Mhm.
And when we got the change, when we got that shift, whatever it was, we integrated something. We made something happen within us using these pieces. And then we said, that's where it needs to be. Lock and load. I'm done. No more jerk to me. No more jerk.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Ev, you're up, man. I'm going to put you in a hot seat on the top row here. What's your relationship? What do you think of plant medicine? Is it a yay or is it a nay? Is it an adjunct or is it a shortcut? Is it a this or is it a that? Which curtain is it?
All I'm going to say about this one, brothers, and look, the brothers have hit it on the head. If you go into these particular ceremonies and you haven't done your shadow work, you're in trouble. Why do I say that? We are living in a space and a time, brothers and sisters, where you as a physical being driving around this beautiful little space biological suit that we've got down here on Earth are up for grabs. It's open season. What do I mean by that? So when you go and perform or partake in certain ceremonies, but like Brother Bear said, man, in our old ways, we had particular elders that would take you through ceremony and ritual. You've got people going worldwide, going into these ceremonies, haven't been doing the work, looking to do the work through this, opening a gateway for other energies, entities, and beings to jump you.
Wow. Wow. How does that
is
happen?
That is the reality, my brothers and sisters. I've sat down with people and I've taken them into deep the deity, and I've talked to beings that are inside of these people's vessels that have come out of these so-called retreats. This is the reality. So you have to be aware that you know what you're signing up for, brothers and sisters. You have to be aware what we're currently living in. It is real, man. It is real. So this is why, I'm so passionate about doing the small things in life that create the biggest results, like looking after your supplement factory. Your unconscious mind takes care of so much for you. It takes care of your immune system, automatic functions within your body. You don't have to do a thing. Yet you want to keep looking on the external world for your answers. Like one of the greats in the field of the subconscious mind said, Carl Jung, he who looks outside dreams, he who looks inside awakens.
Definitely.
Crushed.
I just got chills. So I know there's truth in that one right there. Ev, can you say that last thing from Carl Jung one more time?
He who looks outside dreams, he who looks inside awakens.
There you go. There you go. Well, I put you all three on a hot seat as it related to your experiences and perceptions or perspective around plant medicine. And so I'm just going to share my short take on it. I've been invited to many over the last almost 8 years now, and I have respectfully declined for a few reasons. One is that I believe that divine source doesn't put in my path what I'm not ready for. And only when I am ready to receive the next piece of my puzzle, the jigsaw puzzle called my life, I will receive it. Not because I'm going to jumpstart it. Give me a jump. Give me your cables because my engine just died. And with your jump, I'm going to be okay. I'm going to be able to start my engine. No, I'm not interested in jump starts. I'm interested in trusting and having faith in something that I call divine time. Now, it makes it easier for me because I have a relationship with God. If you don't have a relationship with God, it may make it a little bit more difficult for you. But at least in my healing journey, when I had my own inner awakening, as you like to refer to it, Ev, I made a decision that I wasn't going to put in front of me. I wasn't going to try to take a speed course or get on a freeway, with me in full fifth gear all the way. I'm going to trust that when I'm ready to receive my next up-leveling of my healing within my mind, body, and soul, that it will present itself right on time, not my time, but divine time. And so for me personally, I've said no, thank you. And I'm at peace with it. Now, does it mean that I sit in judgment of others? I'd say that if you think it works for you, go for it. But I didn't sit on the sidelines as a conscious observer. And I haven't observed anybody in my personal life that has utilized plant medicine as a one-off, as the only source for healing where it's worked. As a matter of fact, Ev, I'm in agreement with you. I think I've actually seen some decline. I've seen whatever you refer to that as something entering the mind of that individuals that I'm not comfortable with today. I have not seen a progression. I've seen a regression in the majority of men and women that I have witnessed that use that as a shortcut. So that's my personal opinion. Is it judgment? I want to say hopefully not. I think I'm sitting on the sidelines as a conscious observer, and I'm not at peace with it. I'm not at peace with it for my own journey. We all have choices to make in life, and at the end of the day, we got to live with our choices, whatever that might be. But with what time we do have left, I want to switch gears one more time. We got 6 minutes to the hour. I want to invite each one of you to kind of put a pretty bow on the show and call it a wrap. Give us some closing thoughts and comments as it related to our topic tonight, which is all about our relationship with with the unconscious, subconscious, and the conscious mind?
All right. I'll go
Well,
first.
for me, oh, go ahead,
No,
Bear.
Daz. You got it, brother. This is your night.
Um, for me, it was everything. Learning and understanding the divine dynamics of the intelligence of the unconscious operation in my life. It was everything for me. When I began to discover uh, how it reveals certain lessons that I need to learn about myself through my mirroring, my projections and triggers that I have with interpersonal relationships. So it allowed me to see and dive back into my childhood past and realize that my today's reactions and behaviors stemmed from those situations and how I dealt with them and coped with them and where they originated. Uh, and then I began to recognize how to decode, how to recognize them, be mindful of them. Then I realized and learned how to make the changes and to recognize what the lessons actually are that I need to make the change. And so the lesson was basically taking ownership because as an adult, now I'm an adult. One of the things to be a healthy adult, in my mind, is you have to take ownership and responsibility for your behavior, your actions, and the things that you're doing. That fosters healthy relationship dynamics, and that also helped me to have when the unconscious lessons that I was getting, it now enabled me to have self-love. And I don't need to grab onto the external or my past to always rehash these desires for love and these desires for nurturing. I learned as an adult I didn't have to do that through the unconscious mindful lessons that I was getting. And then the third part of that was basically once I recognized the responsibility and accountability and the self-love, then I was able to forgive uh,
Mm.
the events and the persons in my past
Mhm.
and move past those issues. And that's why I said now I have really healthy relationships with my parents, my siblings, and other people. Uh, so having those unconscious lessons and the divine intelligence that's coming through my interactions really changed my life. And again, there was a time when I had to learn that hey, this is just not a one-off. This is a daily mindful relationship that I have with my unconscious mind, and being present every day and continue to this journey of learning and becoming whole.
Well, Daz, I'll just say one thing. Welcome home. Welcome home.
Thank
It's
you.
a
Thank you
new
very
place.
much.
It's a new place to live, and I'll just say real briefly, it's been an honor having you on my healing journey as my spiritual mentor, one of a few, but my primary one for coming up on 8 years. When I met you, Divine Time, I met you 5 or 6 weeks after I got myself out of the hospital, began my healing journey. You showed up right on time, just like Lonnie showed up in your life, and so I will be forever grateful for your presence and the presence that you provided for me on my healing journey. Soaring Bear, what do you got to say? What's your takeaways from tonight? What do you got? I could give you 2 minutes.
Yeah, I'll see what I can do in 2 minutes. First, Daz, awesome, man. I love you, man. You are a powerhouse. And I love that. I love that. I love seeing people coming
Good.
out and being able to step into their life. And this whole thing about the light from the dark. Um, I have a saying that I try to present to a lot of people, and it's real simple. It's not what happens that matters, it's how we react to what happens that matters the most.
Mm.
That what Daz was saying, responsibility and accountability. As we step into our truth and we're starting to work into the healing, we have to know that it's not about bringing the past into our present and future. It's about recognizing our activity in there and our choices that we made during our lives and just saying, you know what, that just was me. I made that choice. I took that opportunity. I drank that thing. I smoked that thing. I did whatever. Not to be a blame and shame game, just to be a truth. The truth is, that's what I did. The truth is, those are the choices I made. The truth is, I'm now old enough or skilled enough or learned enough to be able to say it's time for me to own up for everything that's occurred in my life, because here I am today, a reflection of all of those choices that we made, good, bad, indifferent, it doesn't matter. Did I have to go through it? No, we don't have to, but we get to go through the healing, and we get to go into our hearts and our souls. Guys, it was the darkest of dark for me 20 some years ago. Had the gun loaded, point right in my mouth, and it took that moment. And in that moment, God spoke to me and said, son, not today, we got work to do. What was that to me? That was it. That was the it I had been waiting for. And that was all I needed. From that point, it was take care of the brain first, and then we'll figure out how we can live this life, at least to be able to get ready for my spiritual awakening. And then the ancestors, my Native American culture, was the thing that kept me grounded. But then when I realized that I can be even more, I took it and ran with it. So it shifted everything.
Awesome. That's awesome, brother.
That's why we do this show. This show is real men, real talk. It's speaking our truths. And this is part of the healing journey. When we have the courage to show up and speak our truth, we can release a lot of the energy, a lot of that toxic, dark energy. And this is all part of that journey of coming home, the return to love of self, through forgiveness, through accountability, through awareness, and having the courage. Bear, man, next time I see you, I'm gonna give you a virtual hug now, but maybe I'll see you tomorrow morning if you're down at Sedona Soul Adventures, because I'm gonna be there to meet a client. Yeah, bring it on. You got it, brother. You feeling it?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. Thank you.
Love you, man. Love you.
Before you get me teary-eyed, because that doesn't take too much here, Ev, I'm going to invite you to give us your closing thoughts on the show. What is this topic? What'd you take out of tonight's episode?
Man, brothers, thank you so much for diving in deep tonight. And look, as always, we miss our other brothers, Josh and Jeff. But it's when you have conversations like this, brothers and sisters, that allows you to become more aware and be able to do a little bit of self-reflection and do your own introspection into what we're talking about tonight. This was much of my life, my brothers and sisters. I was in this place, in that dark. I couldn't see. Sometimes I couldn't even feel. But it's in these places that we start to become aware of some of the darkness that's been happening within our life. The shadow, those old belief systems, the old emotional junk, those old habits, behaviors, and actions that we have to simply start asking ourselves the questions. Why and what? Now, when I started to ask myself why, even my ego started to make up stories. But when I started to ask myself what had happened within my life, it started to become a little bit more clearer that what had happened in my life was not the path that I truly wanted to see. Until I went into that darkness and brought my subconscious conscious, I was living a life that was not aligned to my light. So what I'm saying here, my brothers and sisters, is have a clear vision, have a clear light, have a clear perspective of what it is that you want to see on your path that will give you inner peace, that will give you inner freedom. Because we all have this intelligence, like we've heard tonight, which is called the subconscious or the unconscious mind, that is really running the program. It's really asking yourself the question, my brothers and sisters, do I want to be a product of the past? Do I want to keep ruminating about the future? Do I want to live an inspired life or do I want to live an expired life? That's me.
Hey, Gav. Awesome.
You, Mr. Ruff, man.
I don't think I even want to attempt to top that one. Now, we're not in a competition here, but you know, sometimes we just got to surrender. You know, the fight is over when we surrender. We don't have to be the smartest one in the room anymore. We can honor the one in the room that expresses and allows their wisdom from within to shine. And the three of you tonight, you showed up with wisdom, and I think we
Hey,
could put a
thank you, Bear.
we could put a pretty bow on the show, and we could call it a wrap. And with that, Daz, it's been an honor having you here tonight. You are welcome back. We'll have you back on a future episode or a few
Sure.
when Divine Time says it's your time. In the
Yeah,
meantime,
sure.
Bear, thank you for joining us for another amazing week. We'll have you back in the future as well. And with that, again, viewers, thank you for joining us this evening. If you enjoyed the show, please share it out with friends and family. We love you. We'll see you next week. Peace and blessings with love from my heart to yours.
Peace and blessings.
Joining us
Thank
on
you, guys.
Real Men, Real Talk Live.